Now this knife is going to have a piece of brass above the handle, and so I'm holding the knife on the piece of brass and just draw the outline of the piece that I want to cut out. And you can see I drew it out right here, so this is going to be the piece. Once I cut this piece out, I will just set it down on a piece of brass and cut out a piece, you know, to match this one. So if you don't have any brass, don't worry about it. You can make the handle completely out of wood, and it should still be pretty nice. I've cut the two brass pieces out. They're basically the same shape. This is kind of how they're going to fit on the knife. So now we need to drill 2 holes all the way through all 3 pieces here, so that we can install some pins. And I put the 2 brass pieces on here, and I got this side here lined up pretty even, so I'm going to use a sander to straighten up this edge so that they both match. Now the knife is going to be sitting in there kind of like this, so you want to make sure that this edge here is nice and flat, so when we put our wood pieces on, they'll line up correctly. And once we get this on the knife, you won't really be able to polish these sides here because the handle and the blade's going to be in the way. Okay, I've got my holes drilled in the brass pieces, kind of cleaned up the edges a little bit, and I used a 1/8 inch drill bit because we're going to be using this 1/8 inch brass rod that I got from Home Depot. I think you can probably use coat hanger wire, welding rod, anything. Just make sure your hole and your rod's the same size, and once you've got these drilled into the brass pieces, we're gonna clamp the knife in between these 2 pieces and mark our holes for the blade. Now whenever you mark your holes, all you want to do is stick the drill in there and mark your holes on the blade. You don't want to try to drill all the way through, because if you do, this steel is a lot harder than this brass, and whenever you do, the drill bit's going to move around and it's going to waller out the hole on this brass piece. So just mark your pieces and then take the blade out and drill your holes. And you're going to have to use a hardened drill bit. It's made for drilling through hardened steel, because this saw blade steel is pretty tough stuff. So just try to make sure you've got a hardened drill bit that's good for hardened steel. Now I've got the holes drilled for the brass pieces, and I went ahead and drilled 2 holes in the handle for the wood. And whenever you drill these holes, when you drill the holes in the brass and the wood, you want to keep the holes very close tolerance. When you drill into the steel here, it's okay to have the holes a little wallered out so that the brass rod will pass through there fairly easy. And like I said, this steel is very hard. I went through 4 drill bits trying to get these holes in there, and so that's one thing you're going to need, is some hardened drill bits, and plenty of them. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cut the brass rod and to make the pins, and you can just cut them a little bit longer than what you're going to need, because we're going to grind them down once we get them installed. So just cut you some brass pins for the 4 holes. Make sure that you cut enough so it's going to pass all the way through the brass and all the way through both of the wood scales. So I'm going to use JB Weld to glue the brass pieces to the knife, and the brass pins are actually what's going to hold it in place, but the JB Weld just ensure that there's always a solid tight connection between all the parts. So I'm going to mix that up with a little brass rod, and then I'm just going to coat it on the brass piece right here, and I'm going to place the brass piece on and get a little bit more JB Weld and on the pin, and I'm going to push these all the way through all 3 pieces. Okay, I've got my 2 pins in. I pushed them through as far as I could on the one side, and I'm going to leave this side here out while I compress it in the vise. I'm just going to press this together so that it'll hold it nice and tight while the JB Weld dries a little bit, and then okay. Well, I've got this piece in here and it's starting to dry. I'm going to go ahead and cut these brass pins off with a coping saw, and I'm going to leave just a little bit extra on there, and all that we're going to be able to clean up after it dries. So I'm just going to cut those off now that we've got our brass piece installed I'm going to take this strip of wood. This is just a piece of oak, red oak, that I bought from Home Depot for I think it's like $1.50, but it's a lot cheaper than what you buy from knife supply stores. But it's a hard wood, and when we're done, we're going to stain it, so it's going to be okay. Whenever you take this piece of wood, you want to put it right up against the brass piece on the other side and make sure it's fit snug all the way around, and then we're just going to draw an outline around the handle with a pencil, and we're going to cut out that shape, and we're going to leave a little bit of extra sticking out that we'll clean up later. Okay, I've got my two pieces of wood cut out, so you can see I've got a little extra hanging over the sides, and like I said, we'll clean that up later. But you take your drill and you just go ahead and drill your holes through the wood pieces while you got it clamped into place. Okay, I've taken the two pieces of wood, placed them on there, and cut a couple of more pins. I'm going to take these pins out and just put a bunch of JB weld on the inside here, so that we're just going to glue it all up with the JB weld, press it together, and do the same as we did with the brass with the pins. Put a little JB weld on them and shove them through the holes. Alright, now we've got the pins in the handle, and you can see kind of messy. We've got JB weld everywhere. It's just pretty rough looking, so we're going to cut the pins off, and we're going to do like you did on the brass. Put it against a hard surface, tap them down a little bit. That's after we cut them off pretty much flush. We're going to tap them down a little bit, and then we're going to clean up the handle. Alright, I got my pins cut. I tapped them down a little bit. I'm going to take my orbital sander now, and I'm going to just sand away the excess wood and brass that's along the sides of the blade handle. So I'm just going to start doing that. It's starting to look more like a knife handle now, so we're going to take I've got some narrow sandpaper, and you're just going to put it on here and use two hands and kind of go back and forth like this until you get it nice and smooth. Round it off a little bit. Okay, I've got the handle pretty much rounded. You can see how those little marks we put in there earlier are showing up now, so it just adds a little bit of character to the knife. And now all I'm going to do is stain the wood with well, boys and girls, that's it. Got a little cutlass knife made there. Not bad for a couple of hours work with a few basic tools.
Who stepped on my bacon?